Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 2nd of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm delighted to say we're joined by Chris Jack on his day off, no less. Chris, brilliant to have you on.
Days off are no longer days off when Rangers managers have been sacked. Days off in general are no longer days off these times, but no, especially in these circumstances. So it was a busy day yesterday. Lots of emails being sent, lots of calls being made, lots of WhatsApp messages being sent to try and get to the bottom of it. And obviously, word then came through later on in the evening that Michael Beale was no longer Rangers manager, and that then kicks everyone into overdrive. But as you and the boys discussed on the show last night, it wasn't exactly a big surprise. The story that Michael Beale had been sacked was pre-written, if you like. He already had that one saved and good to go, as I'm sure a number of other people did, because it was just obvious how it was going to go, and what was going to happen. It was just a case of waiting for confirmation that had come through. So a long and at times frustrating day yesterday, but we got there in the end, and we're now on to the morning after the night before, and it's a new era for Rangers, and we'll see where the next couple of days take us, see where the next couple of weeks take us, and then we'll decide what's going to happen from there on.
Yeah, Stephen Davis in interim charge, folks. He'll be assisted by Alex Ray, Stephen Smith, Brian Gilmore and Colin Stewart. So that is the new backroom team for the time being, while Rangers look for a permanent manager to take over from Michael Beale. As Chris said, I was on last night with Stevie and Joshua as the news broke, so you can go and check that out on our YouTube channel, folks. Chris, I'm interested to get your point on Saturday, though. The toxic atmosphere at Ibrox. Have you witnessed anything like that before?
Not since the Motherwell game, and then not since the Celtic game. I think we've also spoken about this in the last couple of weeks in terms of how many of the fans had really turned against Michael Beale as manager, had turned against a number of the players, certainly a number of his new signings. And I think if you can class Michael Beale as fortunate at the weekend, he was fortunate that not a lot of people stayed behind. Otherwise, the reception that he and the team got would have been even worse. Also, as soon as that third goal goes in from Aberdeen, a lot of people decide to head for the exits. The ones that did stay behind to see it out made their feelings clear, and rightly so. The players obviously did a lap of dishonour, I think we should call it, going round the pitch, and they were left in no uncertain terms of what the fans felt. And nobody can criticise the support for reacting in that way, because what they've been served up for too long has not been good enough. And now they're putting their hard money in. They've turned up at Ibrox 4 times in the last fortnight now. And a good night against Betis aside, it's been fairly poor. Or it has been really poor, to be honest. And Aberdeen was the worst of it lot. They're just unacceptable in so many avenues. So I think the fans were quite right to make that point. And I don't think there'll be many people who are upset at the news that maybe broke last night that Michael Beale is no longer Rangers manager. It's not been a good tenure. It's certainly not been a good start to the season. And I don't think anyone, including the manager or former manager now, can have any complaints over how this has unfolded.
Yeah. My point of view was, Chris, I thought Rangers should have made a move after the Celtic game. I understand why they didn't at the time. I just felt it was just one bad result away from this happening, and I would have preferred a managerial change. I've got to admit, after the Celtic game, I didn't see any improvement happening under his watch. Do you think that's a fair comment? Could you understand why the board kept him on, though, after that Old Firm defeat?
I think that's been the biggest issue that the board have been wrestling with over the last month or so, whatever it is, since that Celtic game. I think we all knew after that defeat, and certainly the manner of it, Michael Beale was a dead man walking. It was only a matter of when rather than if he was going to get sacked. When you get to the stage of he's got one game to save his job, you've already lost your job. It's impossible to come back from that situation, especially at a club like Rangers. I think if the only doubt in my mind on the timing of it is how long do they leave it? Now, they've waited until there's been like one result, and it looks like that one result has tipped over the edge. But it has been coming, and it had to be done now, because Rangers can't afford any more damage to be done. We can all have an opinion on whether the Premiership title can still be won or not at 7 points. If a new manager comes in and makes a really good start, maybe just there's still 3 Old Firm games to go. You can dress it up as there's a title race on here. If it got any more than that and it dropped a couple of points at St Mirren before the break, like they did under Gio this time last year, it's all bets are off. You're not winning the title from 9-10 points behind Celtic. Still, obviously, the cup to go and win, but that was never going to save them. It had to be won, but now go and win in the Viaplay Cup, but being 12 points behind Celtic does it keep you in a job? So that you can almost take that off the table. Europe, you can almost take off the table because it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not important. Not when it comes to the Premiership. So I'm not surprised they waited until that one final one. Personally, I would have made the change after the Old Firm game, because I think at that stage the writing was on the wall and it was obvious where this was going. We've all seen this movie often enough. People that are versed in the club and in Scottish football, you just get a feeling how things are going to go. We know how these things are going to go. I thought after the Motherwell game, the manager maybe knew it himself. I think he could tell by the performance and the reaction that day. I thought he was really down. I do wonder if that afternoon he thought, nah, this is probably heading in the one direction. But for a lot of people, I think it's been going that way for certainly since the Celtic game. So if there's going to be any criticism of the board over their timing, you could have said it should have been done earlier. If it had been done any later, then I think every bit of criticism would come their way. That would have been justified. If they'd held off for this week to try and get to the break, that would have been the wrong thing to do. So I think that they've acted fairly decisively after that game at the weekend. They've done the right thing, and now have to also move on to the next man.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll discuss potential candidates shortly. A few comments, got a number of comments come in. First of all, we had a guest appearance from a gaggle of chickens, a group of chickens that seem to be living in Stevie's living room last night. A huckster says, this podcast is just not the same without a chicken. I was cracking up last night when the chicken emojis were coming in. But yeah, no farmyard animals were in Stevie's living room. I can confirm, although it did certainly sound like a hen or a chicken-like creature in the vicinity. Number of candidates, number of potential replacements have been been listed by a number of bookmakers. Of course, some interesting names, some more left field. Now, we know that Stephen Davis is in interim charge, and the board did say they'll be in charge for as long as the process takes. The Rangers are going to be taking their time in terms of appointing Michael Beale's replacement. But just looking at some of the names that have been linked, Chris, Kevin Muscat, of course, is one. Jesse March, the former Leeds United manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, Chitel Knutson, the Bodo Glimt boss, Marcelo Bielsa, Rino Gattuso, which is a bit weird. I think it's just a lazy link given he's just been appointed the Marseille manager. Bielsa also, of course, the Uruguay boss. Graham Potter's in there. Scott Parker, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Andre Villas-Boas, John Dal Thomason, Frank Lampard, Chris Wilder is in there. A few other names as well. I've seen Derek McInnes also with odds linking him to the job as well, Chris. There's going to be a host of names, and it is, as you mentioned, Rangers, it's still an attractive proposition. I've heard a lot of supporters saying this such and such a manager wouldn't be attracted to said job, but it is attractive to a number of managers out there, especially those that may be out of work. No,
the Rangers job is always going to hold a huge appeal and a certain allure to managers. Also, there's going to be a good wage on offer first and foremost, but the chance to come in and work at a club with the history and the traditions and the standards and the facilities, both at Ibrox and at Auchenhowie, it's going to be a hugely attractive job for managers. I don't think Rangers will be short of interested candidates. I think the good thing in the situation this time, I don't think there's an outstanding one. There's not like a fan's choice right now. When Steven Gerrard left, I think it was fairly obvious everybody wanted Van Bronckhorst. He was a key popular choice, and it almost made it easy for the board to go and then do that deal. I think when Gio then left, there was a lot of people wanted Michael Beale. I know there were some that didn't, and there's a lot of fans that were unconvinced over Michael Beale. But again, I think he was a relatively popular choice amongst the fans, and the club then went and got him. This time, as you've just read out, Derek, there's a dozen names, and you could go and rhyme off a dozen or 2 dozen more of potential targets. And I think that makes the job easier in terms of the board. Also makes it more difficult because there's not that one of, right, let's just go and get him. But it does make it easier because they've got carte blanche now to go and really explore the market. There's not the pressure of, well, the fans want him, let's just go and get him. I would hope that the process has been ongoing for longer since full time on Saturday, and that the names have been thought of and bandied around, and people have been sounded out. I know there's a story this morning. Graham Potter has already seemingly ruled himself out of it, which I don't think is a massive surprise. I can see the attraction of people wanting someone like Graham Potter, but I think financially that was never going to work. So it's not a massive surprise that he's let it be known already this morning that he's not interested. I don't think there's out of those ones he lined off, Derek, there's nobody that really stands out for me as I can say it's him. That's who I want. But I'm interested to see how it develops over the next couple of days and couple of weeks. There is word from the club last night was there's no rush to go and make an appointment. They've also got these 2 hugely important games this week. You've then got a fortnight of international break. That then gives them a bit of time as kind of breathing space just to kind of assess their options. I don't think they want to leave it much longer than that. But I think that Stephen Davis and Alec Ray, they've got 2 guys there that know the club, will know the dressing room, certainly also know the league, they know what's expected. I think they're fairly safe, steady operators to have in there at present. So I think that's the right appointment for those 2 to come in, and it does just buy them that wee bit more time to go and make sure that the right man comes in. Because again, word last night was the board are fully aware you cannot be chopping and changing your manager every 12 months. Now that's not Rangers. That's not how this club should go. It should operate. We don't want to find ourselves in the same kind of cycle of like championship clubs where you're changing the manager every 8 to 18 months. That's not sustainable. That's not building for success season after season. So hopefully the next one they do get is going to be here for a long time. Hopefully it's going to be successful. But there's a lot of pressure now on also John Bennett as chairman, James Bisgrove only in the door as chief exec a couple of months. They've got a really big decision to make, and I think it's important that they do take their time to make sure that the next Rangers manager is a successful one. Because for a whole variety of reasons, we can't afford it to be another failure.
Yeah. Lots of comments coming in with regards to that managerial search now. Trevor Wiseman gets in touch. Morning, Trevor. Morning from Melbourne, lads. Muscat Link is a worry. His record was poor and style of football was worse. Hopefully nothing in it, he says. And there's a point as well. This from Robert McFarlane raises a point here. He says, morning, guys. I need you to cheer me up. Feeling thoroughly depressed. Another manager gone. We need to go for experience, surely. And huge thanks to David McFarlane for donating to the channel. Thank you very much, David. He says, should we go after an experienced manager or a manager who wants to play good, attractive, attacking football? This chat of a new era cannot continue. I'm of the opinion, Chris, I want an experienced guy who knows football inside out. You hear this term project manager. I don't think Rangers can afford to go for a similar character to Michael Beale. I've seen a few managers who take charge of English Championship clubs who are novices pretty much in their managerial careers, been touted for the job. I want to see someone that has been there and done it and is a born winner, if you like, is proven success. But who that guy is, I do not know, but I think Rangers need experience for this appointment.
In terms of the profile, I think it's now before you start narrowing it down to names and talking wages and transfer budgets, I think the profile of it is really interesting because Rangers over the last few years, they've had the up-and-coming championship manager in Warburton, they've had up-and-coming English coach in Beale, you've had the foreign experiment in Pedro, you've had the England legend in Gerrard, you've had a hero of the club in Van Bronckhorst. they've ticked a lot of boxes and gone down various different avenues in search of success there. I think it has to be someone of Gerrard's standings and stature. I think if you look at the way that Gerrard conducted himself in the job that he did, and really bringing the whole club up from the bottom up, it takes a certain kind of character, it takes a certain kind of man to be Rangers manager. So I think that's one of the big aspects that has to be addressed. But in terms of the profile of them, I said we've gone down various different avenues over the last 8 years or so now. So where do you go? There's probably not another completely separate road that you can go down. So you're going to have to think of someone do you go back down the Gerrard style? Do you try and go back down the Beale style and get another championship manager? That comes with huge risks, as we've just experienced previously by Mark Warburton. Having someone who knows the club and who knows Scottish football is no guarantee of success, as Gio showed. Not great in Europe, but couldn't get the results domestically to go and win the Premiership. So I think it's really difficult in terms of actually narrowing down an identity, if you like. Now, before we even get to names, what kind of Rangers manager, what personality, what experience, what track record, what strengths and weaknesses are you looking for? Because there's not, as I said earlier on, I don't think there's an obvious candidate. So once we've narrowed that down, I think you can then start getting into names, and then you can start getting, as I say, wages and budgets and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to be interesting. There was a few points came in just regards to the interim management team. David Thompson with the point here says, no rush worries me. I don't think this interim option of Davis and Ray can last beyond the international break. And just on the back of that, Chris with the point here, what's the chances of Davis and Ray getting the job full time if they come in and do a turn in the short term? Is this a job interview, do you think, Chris? If Stephen Davis and Alex Ray do the business, could they be in with a shout of getting the job, do you think?
I would be very surprised. One, Stephen doesn't actually have the required coaching credentials at present. Rangers can get through this situation over the next couple of weeks. But I think the way the statement read last night, it didn't sound as if it was a job interview. I think they've got two experienced guys, I say, that know the club, that know the league, who will demand huge respect. Or Stephen Davis having to make that transition from being part of the playing squad and being around Dock and Howie over the last couple of months while he's come back from his injury. But I think it comes far too early for him. I think over the last couple of years we've all thought, Steve Davis could be Rangers manager one day. Nobody would have assumed that he would be in the dugout for a Europa League game as this soon. But no, I don't see it being a long-term thing. I think if he can get through the Limassol game, get through Spurn game with 2 wins, hopefully some sign of a performance in there as well, I think that's a good start. That then buys the club time, takes a bit of heat out of the situation, and we've then got this international break to then appoint the next permanent Rangers manager. Going forward, I'd like to see Steve Davis involved. Yes, if the new manager fancies him and he thinks it could be worthwhile having him there for his experience and everything that he can bring to the table. Could Steve Davis be a coach going forward? Yes, I certainly wouldn't be averse to that. Is he going to be the next Rangers manager? No.
Yeah, Aldo raises the point. He says, I'm happy with the Davis and Ray for the partnership for the foreseeable, but I want the new manager to have no relation to the club whatsoever. And he also says, Chris Jack, now that's an office. You're in your new office, Chris, aren't you? But certainly decked out.
This is the new office. This is the new gaff. Moved house a couple of months ago. It's been a hectic couple of months getting everything sorted, but I was off. It was fully decorated last Saturday, I think. So this is the new blue room, so I'm glad Aldo likes it.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Just in potential names, I've seen lots of suggestions coming in. Wally with a point here says, everyone going on about getting an experienced manager. I think Sam Allardyce would be a good fit for Rangers. He certainly would be entertaining in press conferences. I wouldn't mind Big Sam up the road, I've got to say. I admit I was getting pelters when I was on with Johnny yesterday when I suggested Neil Warnock taking over on a temporary basis. I think he too would get a tune out of that failing squad is what it is at the moment, Chris. Do you expect Stephen Davis and Alex Rae to make many alterations to that starting 11? Do you think they'll put their own stamp on things?
I think if they had the players, then I'm sure they would do, and I'm sure they would like to. But it's a tricky balance thing right now, because they've got these 2 games to play and they don't really have that many options. Also, Ridvan and Ryan Jack came off at the weekend. There was bigger issues than their fitness, aside from Michael Beale just confirming that they came off at half-time injured. So we'll find out on Wednesday if Ryan Jack is fit, or if Ridvan's not in a European squad anyway. Scott Wright sent off, so won't make this one game next weekend. So in terms of options, they're a bit short on them. So I would be surprised. I'd like to hope they could get some form of reaction out of them, because I think the application, shall we say, in the last couple of weeks has not been good enough. I would like to hope that they can get some form of reaction that way. But in terms of actually implementing a new style of play, that's not going to happen within not a couple of days that they've got. They'll just be in all focus on Limassol. They're only then back early hours of Friday, and then it's all attention's on the St Mirren game on Sunday. So there's not a lot of time for them to do too much apart from try and improve the morale around the place. I think it'll be a big thing. Try and get people bought into it. Try and get people back on side. But I say, in terms of actually changing things too much, just don't have the players right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, Rangers suffering another similar injury crisis as he experienced last season. Rory Morrison with a point here says, Big Sam or Warnock, geez a break. Thought this was meant to be a serious podcast. Well, this is pure comedy, Rory. I do apologise if you're looking for more serious chat. Buzzlop, thank you very much for your donation, buddy. He says, we need a manager that can implement a system that breaks down low blocks. We need a musket. We also need to copy them with assistants being permanent. And the point here from Jake, thank you for your donation, buddy. He says, no more project managers, he says. Thought this was an interesting point as well. Colin Cooper says, my God, how far away are we from that unbeaten season? Are we further? Are we Rangers worse now than what they were last season, Chris? Are they further? I thought at the start of the season, this Celtic team had regressed. Brendan Rodgers coming back. He's a man under pressure given his exit from the club in his first spell, and I thought Rangers would have a right crack at the title. However, it doesn't look like it's going to be the case this season. How far away are we from that unbeaten season when Rangers won 55? When is 56 going to happen?
It feels a long time ago. I know it's also a couple of seasons. A lot has happened in that time. I think the fans were hoping that Michael Beale could perhaps bring back that spirit of the 55 season and give the club and give the team something to believe in going forward. But it's really not happened this season. The signings have been poor, to put it lightly. And that's putting it very lightly, because a number of them have been nowhere near the standard. You look at Lammers and Dessers again at the weekend. These are guys that big money has been spent on, and I know we've had this discussion on the show previously of, are the guys that have been brought in any better than the ones that were let go? And I think I said to a couple of weeks ago, Derek, we'll only know it come the end of the season once we've had a proper chance to look at them. As it stands, would you rather have Lammers or Ryan Kent? Would you rather have Dessers or even a Morelos of last season, but not even peak Morelos?
Yeah.
And those questions answer themselves. The squad is expensively assembled. It's not delivering value for money. And if a new manager can't get value for money out of it, it's going to be a really tricky 6 to 18 months for Rangers, because they spent a lot on that squad. There's not an endless pot of money there. They missed out on Champions League this season as well, which is a blow, not huge, but it's still a financial negative for the club. And it's hard to see who the assets are that can go and then fund it again. Because also Glenn Kamara has moved on. If you can get your money back for a lot of the guys like Dessers, Lammers,
Good luck.
if you get your money back, you've done well, and it's then trying to find further investment, then go again. A new manager will obviously want to put his stamp on the squad, so I can't do that until January. But it's a squad that I still think needs a lot of work done to it. And a point that we actually, I think I spoke about after the game with somebody at the weekend, it's not just the new signings that there's big question marks over now. It's established figures. It's Tav, it's Goldson, it's Barisic, it's Ryan Jack. Picking these guys out might seem unfair, but they've been part of a pattern now. They've been part of one really successful Rangers side, a Rangers side that could have made history. But more often than not, Rangers sides that haven't delivered, or Rangers sides that haven't won enough. And you mentioned 55 there. 55 still feels like for this group, they've reached the top of the mountain and they've got no chance of ever getting back up another one. Great Rangers teams and great Rangers sides go again season after season. They don't settle for one. And for a number of these guys, they've never looked like getting back to that level. It felt like 55 is one and done, and that's not Rangers. That's not how Rangers have to be going forward. So as much as we've got concerns over the money that's been spent on the new guys, I do think if a manager came in and decided to get rid of Tav and Goldson and some of the more established figures in that squad, I don't think it would be a negative thing. I think fans sometimes get too attached to players and we don't like to see players move on. Now, these guys, over their Rangers careers, ultimately, to be honest with it, they've not done enough. And it's about now building that next, like Gerrard did in that summer of 2018. It's about building the next core of a squad that can be here longer term. But if that happens, it has to be a squad that can win time after time after time. And that's not what this group of players have done. And the guys that have come in this summer don't look like being able to take that on again. So no matter who's in the dugout, I still think there's a lot of work to be done on the squad. But that comes from top down, and you have to have the right man in charge first.
No, I know the football was pretty turgid at the end under Gio, but it was he'd done a lot better than what Michael Beale delivered for Rangers. There's no question about it. Kenneth Rutherford raises the point, pre-season told us everything. And Chris Redhand, just on the new signing, says, jury is out on the new signings until we see them properly managed for me anyway. I think Rangers get an experienced manager and he will get a tune out of a number of those players. I think Rangers still have a good squad. I think there's a bit of a mismatch at the moment in terms of the players that have been brought in. But I still think someone can get a tune out of them. Happy birthday to Christina, gets in touch. Thanks for the birthday present, Rangers. Good luck to our beloved Ulsterman for Thursday. Hopefully you have a great day, Christine. And just on said Ulsterman, Denzel with a point here. Chris, he says, with Davis in charge, we're sure to have a man on the back post at set pieces. He did it himself for long enough. Desperately needed. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be one of the first things he implements in terms of the set pieces. How many goals that Rangers he prevented sitting there at the back post. So yeah, good stuff. He also raises a point here, which is an interesting one. He says the board has to answer questions. Why was Beale given full control of every footballing function at the club? He has enough to do without de facto director of football and academy chief and recruiter. We discussed this on the show last night, Chris, about the need for a director of football. Sort of went a bit quiet after. I mean, the summertime, when we were hearing from James Bisgrove, he says the recruitment process was going well, and we were led to believe that an appointment would be happening short in the summertime or at the start of the season. We're now in October now, no further forward. Do you think that's something Rangers need to address as well as bringing in a new manager?
Finding yourself in a position to recruit for both of those roles at the same time is not a good one. It's not a good one to be in. No. That's not how the director of football role should operate. And if you think of the people that Rangers have had in that role, Ross Wilson, Mark Allen before that, going back even further, Frank McParland, and as director of recruitment or whatever he was at that time, I think Rangers have still to really crack that off-field role. as I said to you the other day, Derek, I think it's a position that should be filled.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's important for the club. I'd like to see someone in that role. I think it has to be redefined a wee bit in terms of the transfers, in terms of what their remit is. But it's again, every appointment that you make is a risk. There's no, whether it's chairman, director of football, chief executive, striker or manager, there's no guarantees with anyone in football. But I think it's really important that Rangers do have that director of football role sorted. And as I said, having to do both of those things at the same time is not easy. If you can appoint a director of football even within the next fortnight, now you go and bring someone in, how long do you then give them to then go and appoint a manager? So you get something in over the next fortnight, you then give them a fortnight to go and get a manager. Another month down the line, and the Premiership title could be a long way out of sight by then. So and your League Cup aspirations could be over as well. So it's a really difficult situation for Rangers to find themselves in. It's one of their own making ultimately, because most things in football are. Now, if you paint yourself in a corner, now you've done it of your own through your own mistakes. Hopefully Rangers can rectify their mistakes, and hopefully they can get the right people in. And I say time will tell what the new football structure looks like. But as I've said, as the guys have said in the comments, it has to be the right people this time, because there is just no margin for error now. If Rangers fail to make the right appointments now, you're not just writing off this season. It's a knock-on effect for season after season after season. So a really interesting and a defining few weeks coming up for Rangers once again.
Yeah, certainly is. Right, that'll do us here, folks. Chris, next time we speak to Chris, he'll be sunning himself in Cyprus. Safe travels, Chris, over there towards Limassol. We'll speak to you on later on in the week. Certainly a lot more optimism now, I think, heading into that game with Aris as there was yesterday. That's for sure. Thanks everyone for interacting with the show. There's loads of content on the website for you. Just incidentally, Michael Beale, I forgot to mention, he did write on his Instagram earlier on. He says, thank you, Rangers, to everyone behind the scenes at the training ground and Ibrox, to the board, staff, fans, and all the players. I will always follow and support the club from afar and wish you every success. Now is the time for everyone to unite fully behind Stephen Davis and the team in the coming games. There is still so much to play for this season, and I have a strong belief in this group of players. Thank you and good luck, MB. So there you go, Michael Beale breaking his silence after that news yesterday that he has been dismissed as Rangers manager. Just to remind you as well, if you want to take advantage of the website, we've got an offer on just now, just £18 for the entire year, or you can take up a different offer, which is £4 for the first 4 months. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. We'll speak to you again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye for now.